Hey guys, my name is JC and today we're bringing back Jinnie Fay Jetmir 2nd. The goal of this deck is to make and break tokens using Jinnie's ability until we can go wide and overwhelm our opponents with cats and dogs. If this deck seems like the one for you, then make sure to stop by the channel where we have a deck tech discussing all of the included cards as well as the overall strategy. Let's see just how deadly an army of cats and dogs can be. Okay guys, let's see who we're playing today. We have Oswald Fiddlebender, we have Atraxa Praetors voice, and to finish up we have Darien King of Kjeldor. Alright, so looking at this opening hand, this is pretty good. Always happy to see Earthcraft, even happier to see Smothering Tithe. We've got turn 1 ramp. This is a pretty easy keep. We start the game by drawing a Pest Infestation, so we've also drawn into some interactions. This is a pretty good hand. Alright, let's just start by playing our Stomping Ground for turn. We'll have it come into play untapped, so we'll lose 2 life, and then we'll cast our Llanowar Elves. And that's going to be it for our turn. Oswald plays a land, and they leave it there. Atraxa just plays a tap land for turn, and they're also going to leave it there. Darien plays a land, and they cast a Weathered Wayfarer. You pay a white, tap it, search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Activate only if an opponent controls more lands than you. And that is it for them. We draw a Birds of Paradise. So we'll play our Mountain for turn, then we'll cast our Birds of Paradise, and then we'll follow that up with our Earthcraft. And provided we don't see any removals soon, we're definitely doing the best at the table so far. Let's hope we can keep it that way. We'll pass the turn here. Oswald plays a land, and now they cast their commander, Oswald Fiddlebender. You can pay a white, tap and sack an artifact, search your library for an artifact card with mana value equal to 1 plus the sacrificed artifact's mana value, put it onto the battlefield, then shuffle, activate only as a sorcery. Then they end the turn there. Atraxa plays a fetch land for turn, they immediately crack it, so they're going to go search their library for a basic land card. They put a basic island onto the battlefield, and now they cast a Farseek. And that is it for Atraxa. Darien starts by casting a land tax for turn. At the beginning of your upkeep, if an opponent controls more lands than you, you may search your library for up to 3 basic land cards, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle. It looks like they missed their second land drop for turn, which may be notable, and that is it for them. We draw a land for turn. We'll start by playing our basic forest. Now we could get down our commander here, but I think it's much better to land the Smothering Tithe, especially while our opponents are tapped out, so they hopefully won't be able to interact with it. We'll at least get a little bit of value from it. So let's do that. That goes through, and then we'll just pass the turn there, and keep our fingers crossed that the Smothering Tithe sticks around. Smothering Tithe triggers for Oswald, but they actually decide to pay, so they mustn't have too much to do this turn. They play a land for turn, and it looks like they're just leaving it there. Let's see if our opponents follow suit here. So Smothering Tithe triggers for Atraxa. They let us have the treasure. Now they play a Breeding Pool, and they have it come into play untapped, losing 2 life. And now they cast their commander, Atraxa Praetors voice. Flying, Vigilance, Death Touch, Lifelink. At the beginning of your end step, proliferate. They move to their end step, but there is nothing to proliferate for them, so they just pass the turn there. Land tax triggers on Darien's upkeep. They go and find 3 basic planes to put to hand. Now when they draw, Smothering Tithe triggers, they give us the treasure. They play a land for turn. And now they play a Pearl Medallion. White spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And that is it for their turn. We draw Gilded Goose for turn. Okay, well we'll play our Mountain. Now I think we can get down our commander, so we'll cast Jinnie Fay. That resolves. Now we'll also get down our Gilded Goose. On ETB, Gilded Goose does make a food token, but we're going to turn that into a 3/1 dog instead. And though we do have Earthcraft up to be able to tap and use our creatures immediately, even the ones with Summoning Sickness, Pest Infestation isn't really good at the moment, and Eternal Witness is getting us nothing back, so I think we just have to pass the turn and start accumulating either treasures or more dogs with our Smothering Tithe. So let's just pass it over there. Smothering Tithe triggers on Oswald's draw step. Do they pay for it again? It looks like they do, so they're the only responsible player at the table. That or they have nothing to do. And they also cast an Arcane Signet. Now they use Oswald to immediately sack that artifact, so they'll be able to find themselves a 3-drop artifact here. Let's see what they get. I haven't really played Oswald much, so I don't typically know what they tutor for. It looks like they find themselves a Foundry Inspector. Artifact spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. And that is their turn done. Smothering Tithe triggers on Atraxa's draw step. They give us the treasure, but we're going to convert this into a dog. Now they cast a Pollenbright Druid. When it ETBs, choose 1, put a 1/1 counter on target creature or proliferate. They decide to put a +1/+1 counter onto Atraxa. Now they move to combat. Very likely we see Atraxa come our way here. And we do. Because we have more than enough mana at the moment, I am going to block with the Birds of Paradise. I don't think we need that at the moment. So that goes down. It does gain them life, so they're up to 42. And now they move to their end step. Atraxa triggers, they proliferate. So Atraxa gets another counter, and now she's a 6/6. And that's their turn done. Land tax triggers on Darien's upkeep. Now they move to their draw step and Smothering Tithe triggers. They opted not to use land tax there. They give us a treasure. We'll make another dog. And now they cast Loxodon Gatekeeper. Artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control enter the battlefield tapped. Ooh, that is a spicy one, that's for sure. And that will affect a little bit what we're doing over here. And that is the end of their turn. So what we really want to start drawing into is some form of card draw. Well, Growing Rites of Mitlamok isn't too bad. That at least lets us dig a little bit deeper, and it's going to give us access to a lot of mana now. So we'll start by casting that. That resolves. Growing Rites trigger goes on the stack. Let's look at the top 4 cards of our library, see if we hit a creature. We have Loyal Apprentice and Scoot Swarm. Scoot Swarm is a very good card, but we don't have any card draw online at the moment, so it's not guaranteed that we do get into lands. Loyal Apprentice is weaker, but at least we guarantee it triggers. As much as I'd like to take the Scoot Swarm, I think I'd rather prefer the reliability of Loyal Apprentice triggering, so we'll take that. Now we'll cast our Loyal Apprentice. That ends the battlefield tapped. Now let's move to combat. Loyal Apprentice triggers. We'll make another dog. That enters tapped. And let's send one of our dogs towards the Oswald player and 2 of them towards the Darien player. No one decides to block. They take the damage. Now we will just move to our end step. Growing Rites of Mitlamok will trigger, so we're going to transform it now. And now we have Mitlamok Cradle of the Sun online, so we can tap for a lot of mana. All that is limiting us at the moment is the cards in our hand, and being able to get more cards. Alright, Smothering Tithe triggers on Oswald's draw step. Once again they pay for it. Now they cast a Marble Diamond. They sacrifice the Marble Diamond, so they're going to look for another 3-drop. And they find themselves a Scepter of Empires. Tap it, it deals 1 damage to target player or planeswalker. It deals 3 damage instead if you control artifacts named Crown of Empires and Throne of Empires. So I'm guessing that's the little synergy combo that they're going for using Oswald. And that is it for their turn. Smothering Tithe triggers on Atraxa's draw step. They give us the treasure. We'll make a dog. And now Atraxa casts Zagana Utopian Speaker. When it ETBs, if you control another creature with a +1/+1 counter on it, draw a card. And for 6 mana you can adapt 4. Each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it has trample. Okay, well now that's making Atraxa harder to block, and no doubt it's going to be coming our way when they move to their combat step. But I think we've got time, and if they show that they're going to be applying pressure to us, we'll actually send most of our army their way, try to take them out of the game. Now because they also draw a card, that does trigger our Smothering Tithe, so we'll make yet another dog. Now they move to combat. Let's see if our army intimidates them, or they have no fear. It looks like they have no fear of all of our dogs. Well, hopefully we'll be able to punish them for that, for their lack of respect for our puppers. Now, I'm not going to block with Gilded Goose. I'll allow it through now that they have trample. We take 6 damage, taking us down to 32. Atraxa also plays a land for turn. And now they move to their end step. Atraxa triggers, proliferating. So Atraxa gets another counter, taking her to a 7/7. And that's their turn done. Land tax triggers on Darien's upkeep. It looks like they grab 1 plains this time. Now Smothering Tithe triggers on their draw step. They allow us to have the treasure, which now becomes a dog. Let's just hope we don't see a board wipe from Darien this turn, and we're going to be in a pretty strong position. They play a land for turn, and they cast themselves a Thran Dynamo. Then they follow that up with a Lightning Greaves. So probably going to protect their Loxodon Gatekeeper, and they do move it over towards the Loxodon. They move to their end step. We'll activate Mitlamok, giving us access to 11 mana, and then we'll activate Gilded Goose. That makes a food token, which will again become a dog token. And now we can move to our turn. We draw a land for turn. Well, we'll start by playing that land. Then we're going to move to combat. Loyal Apprentice triggers. Normally we'd make a cat here to be able to use for combat, but Loxodon is preventing us from doing that. So let's send all of these dog tokens towards the Atraxa player. They'll block one of them. Damage goes through. So we take them down to 34. Now in our second main phase, we're going to cast Pest Infestation. We're going to target every artifact that we can. We'll try to slow the Darien player down here as well as the Oswald player. Then we can focus specifically on Atraxa. So we'll cast Pest Infestation. That resolves. So now we'll make a lot of pests, which are going to become a lot of dogs. And we just made 14 3-1s with Vigilance. They do come in tapped, but that means next turn, if there's not a board wipe that happens or something big to us, our opponents are in a lot of trouble here. But otherwise, I think we can leave the turn there and just keep our fingers crossed, hope for the best that we actually keep our board state. Because so far we've been pretty lucky that we haven't encountered a board wipe yet. Smothering Tithe triggers on Oswald's draw step. This time they give us the treasure. We'll make yet another dog. And there we go, we see the board wipe, Cataclysmic Gearhulk. When it enters the battlefield, each player chooses an artifact, a creature, an enchantment, and a planeswalker from among the non-land permanents they control and sacrifices the rest. So we were oh so close there, but just not fast enough to get around the board wipe. We'll hold on to Smothering Tithe. We'll also hold on to Jinnie Fay. We'll keep one of our treasure tokens. And that will be us done with our selections. So our board state looks very different now. Luckily we have Eternal Witness in hand, so we can get back what we need when we need it. And that's the end of the Oswald player's turn. Smothering Tithe triggers on Atraxa's draw step. They give us the treasure, we'll make a dog, and try to rebuild our army. But I'd say we're going to be in pretty big trouble here now that the board is cleared, and Atraxa being the size that it is. We're very much likely still going to be the target, and it's only going to take a few hits to take us out of the game, so our top decks are going to be really important here. Atraxa plays a land for turn, and now they cast a Sword of Truth and Justice. Equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has protection from white and from blue. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control and then proliferate. They immediately equip it to Atraxa, which is just hastening our defeat in this game. They move to combat, and we better be prepared to brace ourselves here. And yep, we are taking the hit. That takes us down to 23 with 15 commander damage. That triggers Sword of Truth and Justice. Now they move to their end step and they proliferate using Atraxa's ability. And that's it for their turn. Smothering Tithe triggers on Darien's draw step. They give us the treasure. We will make a dog. They play a tap land for turn, Emiria the Sky Ruin. And now they activate Weathered Wayfarer's ability. It looks like they found themselves a Nykthos Shrine to Nyx as their land. Now they cast an Oblation, targeting their own Weathered Wayfarer. The owner of target non-land permanent shuffles it into their library and then draws 2 cards. That triggers our Smothering Tithe twice. It looks like they're just looking to draw some cards, rebuild their board state. We're going to make 2 dogs from this, and that's it for them. We draw a Welcoming Vampire for turn. Now normally that would be an answer for us for Atraxa, but while they have that sword out, that does give them protection from white and blue, which means the Welcoming Vampire can't block. Now we do have the option here to actually use Eternal Witness, get back Pest Infestation and destroy the sword. And provided they can't get rid of Welcoming Vampire, that buys us another turn. I think that's probably what we have to do, because otherwise we are going to be dead here. So we'll start by casting Welcoming Vampire. Then we'll cast our Eternal Witness. That does trigger Welcoming Vampire. So hopefully we get a good draw. Especially if we do end up surviving Atraxa's big hit. Just a land, unfortunately. So Pest Infestation comes back to our hand. We'll play our land for turn. And now we'll cast the Pest Infestation targeting the Gearhulk and the sword. That does go through. That'll trigger Jinnie Fay. Let's make some more dog tokens. That makes us another 6. So fortunately we have rebuilt our board state pretty well. And let's just hope that Welcoming Vampire can block Atraxa, because otherwise we are dead meat. We'll move to combat. We'll send our dog tokens in towards the Oswald player. We'll send our commander as well. They take the damage, knocking them down to 22. And we're just going to pass the turn there and hope for the best. But one nice benefit we do have, or one nice synergy we do have at the moment, is with Smothering Tithe and Welcoming Vampire, we can draw a card on each player's turn if they don't pay the tax. Let's hope Oswald doesn't realise that. Well, they do give it to us. So this time we're actually going to make a cat. That's going to trigger Welcoming Vampire. We draw a Rite of Harmony. Okay, well there's card draw. Now Oswald casts an Ichor Wellspring. When it ETBs or is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, draw a card. That does trigger our Smothering Tithe. This time we'll make a dog, because Welcoming Vampire does only trigger once. Now they use Oswald immediately to sack the Ichor Wellspring. That will draw them a card. And they'll be able to tutor up another 3-drop. Once again, that triggers our Smothering Tithe. Now I know it's a pretty obvious thing to say that Smothering Tithe is a powerful card, but you can see in Jinnie Fay how we get even more power out of it. Even with a relatively empty hand, we're still using them for something productive. Productive here being able to hit our opponents for pretty hard damage. I mean, if we do survive this turn cycle and Atraxa can't kill us, we're probably going to be able to take at least one player out, if not more, depending on what we get with this Rite of Harmony. And they put a Basalt Monolith onto the battlefield. And now they cast a Meteor Golem. Well, that might be the end of our Smothering Tithe, or if they've realised that we're dead to Atraxa, they may target the Welcoming Vampire here. Let's keep our fingers crossed they don't see that line. Unfortunately, they do. So we are probably out of this game now. And that's it for their turn. Smothering Tithe triggers one last time on Atraxa's draw step. Jinnie triggers. We will make one last dog. They are just moving straight to combat. I think they've seen enough of our shenanigans. They want us out of the game. They swing in at us. And unfortunately, guys, that is the end of our fun for this game. But we got close. We got close. And that's us out of the game. Now in their second main phase, it looks like they're tapping out for a big spell. And they cast a Vorinclex Monstrous Raider. Trample Haste, if you would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, put twice that many instead. And if an opponent would put one or more counters on a permanent or player, they put half that many, rounded down. Now they move to their end step. They proliferate Atraxa. Atraxa gets double the counters. So now she's at 12-12. So I think the other players are going to be in a little bit of trouble if they don't answer that problem soon. Hopefully the Darien player can get into this game a little more, especially now we're taken out. They play a land for turn. And now they cast their commander, Darien, King of Kjeldor. Whenever you're dealt damage, you may create that many 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. Well, at least that will make Atraxa hesitant to hit the Darien player now. That they're going to essentially give them an army and a can if they do so. Oswald starts by casting Crown of Empires. 3 tap target creature, gain control of that creature instead if you control artifacts named Scepter of Empires and Throne of Empires. Now they also cast a Liquimetal Torque, which is just a mana rock, but it can also turn an on-land permanent into an artifact, which I have no doubt does have some synergies in the Oswald deck. They sack their Basalt Monolith, so they're going to look for a 4-drop artifact now. And they find themselves the Throne of Empires. 1 tap, create a 1/1 white soldier creature token. Create 5 of them instead if you have Crown of Empires and Scepter of Empires. So it looks like Darien may not be the only one that's going to be making a go-wide army. They just need to get their final piece back out of the graveyard. Atraxa plays a land for turn. Now Atraxa casts Verdurous Gearhulk. 4/4 trample. When it ETBs, distribute 4 1/1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. They put all of the counters onto Atraxa. So now Atraxa is a 20/20. It's almost a one-shot kill, which has got to have the Darien player sweating. But before combat, it looks like Oswald activates their Crown of Empires, and they tap target creature. So they do tap down Atraxa. So while the Crown is out, that essentially shuts down Atraxa's plan. They're going to have to find a way to get rid of that. They do, however, send Vorinclex into Oswald, which is definitely a clock in its own right, them being on 22 life, soon to be lower than that. They take the damage, that takes them down to 16. And now they move to their end step, proliferating using Atraxa. So that makes Atraxa a 22/22. Darien plays their Nykthos for turn that they put in their hand earlier. And now they cast a Chroma's Memorial. Creatures you control have Flying, First Strike, Vigilance, Trample, Haste, and Protection from black and from red. But that is it for their turn. Oswald plays a land. And now they cast Clock of Omens. Tap 2 untap artifacts you control to untap target artifact. Well, that's certainly going to be useful with the combo pieces that they want to have online. Now they activate it, untapping their Liquimetal Torque. They have Oswald become an artifact until end of turn. Now they sacrifice their Liquimetal Torque, looking for a 3-drop. They find themselves a Workshop Assistant. When it dies, return another artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. Now the shenanigans begin. They use the Clock of Omens to untap Oswald. Now they use Oswald to sack the Workshop Assistant. And they target their Scepter of Empires. So their combo pieces are online now. They also get to put a 4-drop into play, which it looks like is a Sanctum Gargoyle. When it ETBs, you may return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand. And this time they're targeting their Basalt Monolith. But after all that, it looks like they're passing the turn. Atraxa just moves straight to combat. In response, Oswald activates Crown of Empires, targeting Atraxa. But it looks like Atraxa has a response here. And they cast Anguished Unmaking, exiling target non-land permanent, which is targeting the Crown of Empires, and they lose 3 life. Which does mean that now, because it's in exile, Oswald can't actually put their combination pieces together anymore. Which I'm sure they're not very happy about, because they were so close to being able to do that. So a little bit of revenge from the Atraxa player from tapping down Atraxa all the time. And then they send in all their creatures over at the Oswald player, so they definitely want them out of the game as soon as they can. And that actually causes them to scoop it up there. So now there's only 2 players left. Atraxa moves straight to their end step, proliferating. And Darien's going to need to have a real big turn here, because that Atraxa is lethal if it gets to swing next turn. Of course, they are in white, so white is the color of general answers to everything. They start by playing a land for turn. And now they cast Elspeth, Sun's Champion. Well, that is definitely the answer they needed. +1 can make 3 1/1 soldier tokens, but more importantly, -3 can destroy all creatures with power 4 or greater, which notably does protect Darien because he's a 3/3. And if you get the emblem, creatures you control get +2/+2 and have flying. But they actually activate it, making the 3 1/1 soldier tokens, so maybe they have an answer in hand for Atraxa. Well, I certainly hope they do. And they tap out for an Auriok champion. Protection from black and red, and whenever another creature enters the battlefield, you may gain 1 life. And actually, I just checked the chat there, and the Darien player did say oops, so I think they may have accidentally hit the wrong part on Elspeth. So that was a bit of a misplay on their behalf, which does have to feel bad because that was exactly the answer they needed to this problem. So it seems like they did still intend to wipe the board there, but Akroma's Memorial should keep them alive, at least while it's on the board. That is the one single piece that is keeping them alive though. Now Atraxa does cast Evolution Sage whenever a land ETBs under your control proliferate, but Atraxa just decides to pass through combat, they move to their end step and they proliferate. So the tables might have turned here for the Darien player. That Akroma's Memorial seems like it's definitely going to make or break their current situation. They start by activating Elspeth's ability to make 3 more 1/1s. That triggers Auriok Champion, which is going to gain them 3 life. Nykthos is also going to start to tap for a good amount of mana. They currently have 6 Devotion to white. And now they cast Dawn of Hope. Whenever you gain life, you can pay 2 if you do draw a card, and you can pay 4 to make a 1/1 white soldier creature token with lifelink, which is a very good synergy at the moment with their Auriok Champion. Now they cast Field Marshal. Other soldier creatures get +1/+1 and have first strike. That does trigger the champion. Let's see if they opt to draw a card here. I'm sure they will, with only 3 cards in hand. And they do activate Dawn of Hope. Now they cast a Mana Crypt, and they also follow that up with a Marble Diamond. So they certainly don't have mana troubles anymore. And next they cast Reverent Hoplite. When it ETBs, create a number of 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens equal to your Devotion to white, which is currently 9. That triggers the champion, but they won't be able to draw off Dawn of Hope. But now they're starting to get an impressive number of bodies on the ground, and that actually makes 10 bodies when you include the Hoplite itself, so that triggers Auriok Champion 10 times, gaining them 10 life. Now they move to combat, and they're going to be sending in a lot of the team. It looks like we've got all of the tokens that just came in this turn, as well as the ones from before. Do they send in any of the non-token creatures? It looks like they're going to play it a little safe and just leave it there, keeping up 4 potential blockers for Atraxa. And that brings them down to 18. So it seems if they don't find an answer when it goes to their turn, then Darien is going to take the game. And Darien does move to their end step, so that's the end for their turn. Alright, let's see if Atraxa does have the answer. Alright, Atraxa plays a land for turn, that does trigger Evolution Sage. Now Atraxa becomes a 28/28. And now they cast a Deep Glow Skate. When it ETBs, double the number of each kind of counter on any number of target permanents. That does trigger Auriok Champion, and they will target Atraxa with that. So now Atraxa is a 76/76, but unfortunately they won't get the job done, not while the Akroma's Memorial is still out. But they decide to swing in anyway, probably knowing that it's their last hurrah. Darien blocks with a single human token. As both players know, the token does survive, so they just bounce off each other. And now Atraxa moves to their end step, proliferating. So it looks like after the rougher start that Darien had, they're going to take the game in the end. Now Mana Crypt triggers on the upkeep. They do lose, and that is going to trigger Darien to make 3 1/1 white soldier creature tokens. One of the few times that a Mana Crypt trigger losing the trigger actually ends up being beneficial for a deck. That triggers Auriok Champion. That will also trigger Dawn of Hope. And they draw a card. And they draw another 2 cards using its ability. Now when they move to their main phase, they uptick Elspeth, making 3 1/1 soldiers, which triggers Auriok Champion 3 times. It also triggers Dawn of Hope, but they can't pay for any of the triggers. Now they move straight to combat, and they swing out with the entire team. Atraxa just takes the damage, and that is the game done, guys. Alright, let's go to the review and discuss what happened. So let's discuss how we went first, seeing as we were the first player to be knocked out. For the first few turns, we were definitely ahead of the table, setting up some strong value pieces, and the fact that we could land and keep around that Smothering Tithe meant that we were set up to get very far ahead of our opponents. We got to see the power of some of our cards: Itlamok for mana, Smothering Tithe for mana and bodies, and Pest Infestation for removal and bodies too. Unfortunately, we were just a turn or so too slow when that board wipe hit, and the fact that Atraxa survived that board wipe was really the nail in the coffin for us. Speaking of Atraxa, they presented a dangerous threat from the mid-game onwards, and it was only due to specific cards like Crown of Empires and Akroma's Memorial that she was kept at bay. She was also able to take out the Oswald player, who was able to get into some strong loops with their commander and artifacts. The Darien player was behind most of the game, largely due to Outpest Infestation removing their artifacts. But they were able to bide their time, slowly grind their way back into the game, and then finally ride that Achroma's Memorial into victory. Well, that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed seeing Jinnie do her thing, because she is definitely a token deck you do not want to underestimate. Until next time, guys.